The ongoing US-Iran conflict has closed the Strait of Hormuz, grounded cargo fleets, and steel and aluminium prices to multi-years high. But the crisis is not just a Middle East problem, it is a global construction problem. Every project from a single family home to a skyscraper, this war has found its way into your budget. Almost every solution for construction during wartime comes back to one thing: reducing your dependency on global supply chain. Construction is arguably the most supply chain dependent industry that exists. Concrete needs cement, aggregates, admixtures. Steel needs shipping, logistics, glass, membranes, MEP systems. Every single element has a supply chain behind it. The first concern of wartime construction planning is where your construction materials actually come from and what happens if that source disappears tomorrow. If you're working on a residential project, a home, a small apartment building, a boutique project, honestly, this crisis is an opportunity in disguise because you can go mostly local. Think about it, rammed earth. The material is literally the ground beneath your feet. Compressed earth blocks, same thing. Locally fired bricks made probably 50 kilometers from your site. Lime plaster, a technique that's been around for thousands of years and that doesn't need a shipping container from Gulf countries. And handmade tiles. I keep thinking about Attaguri tiles from Tamil Nadu. These are hand-poured, hand-finished tiles that have been made the same way for generations. They are extraordinary to look at, they age gracefully, and they are fairly immune to what happens in the Strait of Hormuz. Now I know what some of you are thinking, but my client wants a modern aesthetic. They want polished concrete, they want imported stones. And look, I'm not saying you cannot do that. I'm saying in this current situation, the conversation with your client needs to shift, or at least you can make an effort, you can try. Local materials are not compromised. They can carry thermal mass. They breathe well in warm climates. They have a story embedded in them that no imported cladding system ever will. This is actually a moment where vernacular architecture, traditional, place-based design, becomes a genuine competitive advantage, not just aesthetically, practically. Now I'm speaking from an Indian context here, and those specific materials are what I know. But if you're watching this from Nigeria, from Brazil, from Indonesia, from Europe, the principle is exactly the same. Every region has its own version of this. Compressed laterite blocks across West Africa, bamboo construction across Southeast Asia. The material is different, the logic is identical. Find what your land produces, find what your local craftspeople already know how to build with, and lean into that. Because whatever it is, it doesn't need a shipping container. It doesn't need the Strait of Hormuz to be open. Now, large-scale projects, commercial, mixed-use infrastructure. Here, you cannot handcraft your way out of this. Vernacular techniques don't scale to a 20-story tower. You can't ram earth a hospital. So the solution here is not about materials, it's about process and disciplines. And the first word that comes into mind is lean. Lean construction. When every material delivery is uncertain, when lead times are unpredictable, you cannot afford rework. You cannot afford a wrong specification arriving on the site and having to wait 6 weeks for the correct one. Waste is not just inefficiency in this situation. Waste can kill your project. This is exactly where BIM becomes essential. And I don't mean BIM as a documentation exercise. I mean BIM as a risk management tool. Clash detection before construction means zero rework at site or fairly negligible rework at site. Accurate material takeoff means you're not over-ordering and scrambling when prices spike mid-project. 4D sequencing, time-linked modeling means you can simulate what if this delivery is delayed by 8 weeks. Before it happens, you can plan around it, you can resequence. The other avenue I'd encourage people to seriously explore is prefabrication and modular construction. Not because it is fashionable, but because it concentrates material use into a factory environment where quality is controlled, waste is measured, and you're not dependent on just in time site delivery. When supply is scarce and unpredictable, predictability becomes the most valuable thing in a project, and prefab gives you that flexibility. And look, constraint has always driven innovation in architecture and construction. Some of the most interesting structural thinking in history came out of scarcity. Post-war reconstruction in Japan produced entirely new building typologies. Japan, 1945. Cities are in rubble. Tokyo, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, flattened. Millions of people homeless. There is almost no construction material, no steel, no timber. Skilled labor is scarce. So what did Japanese architects do? They were forced to think completely different. They adopted prefabrication and modular construction, not as aesthetic choice, but as a survival strategy. Standardized components, factory made, assembled on site, fast, economical, repeatable. And out of that constraint, that material scarcity, came one of the most radical architectural movements of the 20th century, the metabolism. Architects like Kenzo Tange started designing buildings that worked like living organisms, modular, expandable, replaceable. The Nakajin Capsule Tower in Tokyo, each capsule prefabricated, plugged into a concrete core. That idea was born directly out of post-war necessity. Now, I'm not saying that we are doomed. I'm not trying to be pessimistic here. What I'm saying is much simpler than that. Necessity is the mother of invention. That's it. Now, I want to be straight with you. I'm not a supply chain expert. I'm not an economist. I'm an architect. And I'm sharing this because I think it's important to have this conversation, because there are real people on the other side of this. Investors who have committed capitals to the project, clients who are watching their budget stretch, contractors who quoted a price 6 months ago and that price makes no sense today, workers on site whose livelihoods depend on project's continuation. Nobody knows how long this is going to last. The uncertainty, that's actually the hardest part. So to bring it together, if you're on a small residential project, go local, go traditional. Use this as a design opportunity, not a constraint. If you're on a large-scale commercial project, get lean, tighten your BIM workflow, look seriously at prefab and modular options, and reconsider your design if you need to. And regardless of scale, raise your contingency, issue formal notices to your stakeholders, keep your documentation tight. This is not a reason to stop building, it is a reason to build smarter. I hope I was able to add some perspective. On that note, I will see you in the next one.